And welcome to episode 336 of Habs Unfiltered. I'm your host, Blain, and I am solo for this episode, post game after the Philadelphia Flyers match, where the Flyers came out with a 3-2 win in the last few moments of a very up and down type of game. Um, it's so in this episode, I'm going to cover off a few items. I'm going to talk a little bit about the game, clearly. I'm going to talk about Brendan Gallagher, Sean Farrell, who made his NHL debut, Caden Primeau, who jumped into net for the first time in the NHL this season, and some little odds and ends from the Buffalo game that I didn't talk about in the last episode. So I'll just start with the odds and ends from the Buffalo game. Zeta's shootout goal. Great goal. It's great seeing a fourth liner get a chance. Now, it's obvious that in practice he's put on a clinic at times that only the coach has seen, or so he's got a little bit of a book for on the guys that'll do shootouts. You look at the shootout leaders in the NHL over the history of the shootout, and it's not always star players. So it could be anybody. And when you start getting into a little bit of a role, you're going deeper into the shootout, you try different things. Had the Canadians been in a playoff spot or fighting for one, maybe St. Louis makes a different decision. But in this case, he chose to go with Pizzetta. Pizzetta scores, wins the game, and then pulls off the Tiger Williams Selly, riding the stick. I thought it was awesome. I thought, great. That's a perfect ending. His mullet flowing behind him, a beautiful Selly. Some people may call it disrespectful to the Sabres, but I just don't see it. I mean, people celebrate goals all the time. You can't demand that the NHL show some kind of life, some kind of personality, and then crap on them when they do. So I liked it. I thought it was great. Had that happened against Montreal, had Buffalo scored the shootout winner and the Canadians had lost, and whoever scored the shootout winner for Buffalo pulled off a big selly afterwards, whatever. Hockey fans, we need to see this kind of thing happen in a game so that we can really start to enjoy the game more, because it's just a game. It's not life and death. It's just a freaking game. All right. So moving on from that to the Philly game. Um, wow. You can really tell the Canadians played the night before. They their passes weren't that crisp. You could tell that the timing wasn't there. The effort was. I have to give full marks on effort. You don't have to worry about this team ever quitting. They could be down by 20 goals. They could be up by 20 goals. They will approach the game the same way. They will give their best honest effort every game. And that's all you can really ask for. When someone's building a culture in a sports environment, such as what St. Louis is doing with the Canadians right now, that is exactly what you want as the foundation. You want a team based on work ethic, providing their absolute best, even if it's not their best efforts, even though it's not their best at their skill level. Some days you're at 100%, some days you're at 50, but if you give that full 50, that's your best effort, the best you can do that day. That's all we can ask for, right? So it's going to come up ebbs and flows, and players can control their work ethic and their effort levels. And we're seeing that from the Canadians now. Man, that game was it was choppy. I mean, the Canadians did control puck possession overall slightly more than the Flyers. Now in the third period, they completely took over. 18-11 were the shots for the Canadians. Um, they did have a couple of scoring chances, some really good scoring chances, but only really one high danger chance, and that was the goal that Harvey Pinard scored at near the end. But throughout the game, we did see some good moments. I'm going to start with Gallagher. Now, Gallagher, coming back from injury, had a couple of games where he wasn't all that good, but tonight he scores another goal, a very nice one. And that's 3 goals in 3 games. While the expectations for a player making $6.5 million is they're fairly high, for a player like Gallagher, who has got the mileage that he has, to see him playing at this level now, even if he doesn't score that goal, he scores 2-3 goals every, say, 8 to 10 games. He's impacting the game in other ways too. He's back to the Gallagher of old in some ways, where he's constantly on the move. He's constantly attacking. He's making life hard on goaltenders and on his opponents. It's best we can ask for. Is he living up to that contract? No. But tonight, he led the way. He was very, I'd say, consistent out of pretty much all the other players. This type of game where it gets, you get into the weeds and it's muddy and it's grimy and it's gritty. Those are the types of games that Gallagher really shows his worth. And he did it again tonight. And Harvey Pinard, another player who's in that mold, showed up. He got the goal later in the game, perfectly placed right in front of the net. And I talked about this in the last episode with his shooting percentage being so-called unsustainable. Well, his shooting percentage is so freaking high because all of his shots are within a couple of feet, and he did it again tonight, all alone and just off to the side of the net, a foot away from the goal line, taps it in, open net. You want a high percentage, high shooting percentage when you're in a position like that. But earlier in the game, while killing a penalty, just before the Flyers scored, he blocked a heck of a shot off the foot. He could barely stand. He was still out there moving and trying his best, but he was willing to sacrifice. And they're not a team that are making the playoffs, but you can tell this is a guy who's fighting for a job, showing what he can do, and he's producing points. He's playing well defensively. He's putting in the effort that you want to see from a player who is battling for a job. Now, on that, talking about players battling for jobs, Hayden Primeau. He was called up for this game. There was some talk as to why. Was Montembeault hurt? Is Allen hurt? Allen started the game last night against Buffalo, and tonight people would have expected to see Montembeault, but in this case it was Primeau. Now, nobody's hurt. It just seems that this is something that Kent Hughes and the management group decided they wanted to see what Primeau has now. He had a difficult end of the season last year with the Canadians. He had a great playoff with Laval, and this season he's had some really great moments. He's had a couple of tough games as well. So they want to see what he's got. They want to see what he can bring. Has he taken a step forward in his development? Which is something they'll want to have knowledge on prior to the summer. Because what if they decide they need to sign a goalie? If he shows something great, maybe he's part of the plan. Maybe they go with Montembeault and Primeau and they can trade Allen. Like, these are all, the more information you have on a player and his development and where he stands, the better off you'll be in your decision making. Now, in tonight's game, Primeau was excellent. Like he tracked the puck well. He battled in his crease. He challenged shooters. He wasn't. He was a little choppy to start. I guess there's some nerves there, especially playing in front of his hometown crowd because he's from that area. His dad played for the Flyers. There's a little bit of pressure on him that way. But what we saw from him tonight is more of is closer to what people have expected from him. He is a big guy, but he's always played really deep into his net, having a hard time. He played further out this time. He was at the top of his crease. He was challenging shooters. He had a really good lateral movement, good push off. And as I mentioned earlier, tracks the puck well. Now, he finished the game with a loss, but that loss isn't on him. The goals that were scored on him, the two that were scored on him, were not really mistakes on his part. I mean, they were just really nice shots. And he finished the night with a 960 some odd save percentage. He did his part. He did everything he could to keep the team in the game and to make that to give them the chance to win. And that is the exact performance that you would want to see from a player who's trying to prove himself. And he did. He stepped up. Now, I mean, he stopped a ton of breakaways as well. I think it was two or three breakaways that were just, I mean, he was excellent on those. He was he wasn't overly, how do I say that? He was very quiet in his net. He didn't, like I mentioned, he tracked the puck well. He was challenging shooters, but he wasn't wildly swinging back and forth in his net or trying to make acrobatic saves. He was calm. He was poised for the most part. And he was very economical in the movements that he made in the net. You can tell he was tracking the puck by the way he was moving. He was confident in where the play was going. He was reading the play well. Now, he still had some hard times with puck handling, but he has vastly improved from last season. So all in all, that one game shows some development in his game. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign for Primeau. That's a good sign for the Canadiens. Is it enough to keep him from being traded or for them to trade for someone else? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But at the very least, we're seeing an upward progression for Primeau in his game. And that's the best you can ask for when it comes to a young player like that. Now, yeah, let's see. Sean Farrell. He played his first NHL game. He joined the team just this morning. He did the optional skate. He had a bit of a media availability, and with Doc being hurt, it opened up a door. I know they put Tierney in as a center because of the injury, but would he have really played had it not been for Doc? It's hard to say, but he did. And he played a heck of a game. He was very, very effective. Now, he played just over 13 minutes on a line with Drouin and Gurianov, which, I mean, they didn't generate a ton of shots. They had a few against. But in this 13 minutes, you saw a Farrell who was very dogged in this pursuit for the puck. There was always a second and third effort in his battles along the boards, going after pucks. His back check was impeccable. He was always back in his position, motoring back, and his positioning was solid. He was in the right places to make plays to transition out of the zone or to make himself available for a pass in the offensive zone. Now, it's clear that the speed of the NHL game is still something he's going to have to get used to. But you saw flashes of the type of player he can become. And it it points to why Adam Nicholas, the player development coach for the Canadians, has been so high on him for for years, for several years. When he worked with him in Chicago, now that he's with the Canadians, continuing to work with him, Adam Nicholas has been a big fan of Sean Farrell's, and we see why. His skating is really good. He's got good speed. He's solid on his feet. He's not easily knocked off. Uh, he's for an undersized player. He held up fairly well, especially against the Flyers team, who, while they're not what they're used to be, they're still a fairly physical team, and he held up well. So for a first NHL game, he was noticed for all the right reasons. He didn't make any real errors. He didn't give the puck away. He didn't drag his feet playing defense. He did all those things that coaches love. Like he used his body to get in the way of the players so he can hold on to possession for himself or to take possession. All these little things along the boards, in the open ice, completing passes, helping with the transition, the defense. All those things are things that coaches love, and it's going to give him more ice time in the long run. So maybe the Canadians do have a really good top 9 player in Farrell already. Maybe. Just one game. It's only 13 minutes of ice time, but it was a good game. It was a good, solid 13 minutes, and he played extremely well in those minutes. He might have earned himself even more. So can't really go wrong there. And that's pretty much it for tonight. I don't want to get into the injuries and all the other things. And I mean, it would take months to go over injuries and why and how. But anyway, so the Canadians lost. The Canadians basically stayed where they were in the standings, and that's around 5th overall in the draft. Flyers continued their climb. They've created a 4-point gap now from the Canadians. So for the tank fans, this is a great loss. For those who just want to see the team progress and improve and put in the effort, they're happy because the Canadians did that. We saw some flashes from young guys like Primeau and Farrell, and the team as a whole provided their full value of effort. So you can't really be upset by the way they lost. I mean, it was an honest loss. The Flyers took advantage of a team that was tired, and they got their win. They move up in the standings. The Canadians stay right where they are, and everybody's happy except for the players who lost the game. Now that the Canadians are eliminated from the playoffs. And I did not expect to be saying that at the end of March. I expected saying that a long time ago, but this team has done extremely well, and they have battled. So you can't be upset. The Canadians are going to get a high pick. They're building a good culture. Players want to play for Martin Saint-Louis. Everything's good there. Now, before I sign off, there's been some rumors about Pierre-Luc Dubois and Elliot Friedman saying it's a 95% certainty he goes to Montreal. Now, I'm of the camp of I'll believe it when I see it, but Friedman has it's Elliot Friedman. He's one of the best in the business, especially as an insider. So if he says 95% certainty, that's as close as you're going to get to 100%. It's happened unless you actually see him in a Canadiens uniform. So if it does happen, that'd be great. I mean, Marco D'Amico wrote an excellent article on methods that Hughes can take to make it happen. You can check it out at Montreal Hockey Now. Marco, good friend of the show, great guy. I love his work. You check it out, especially this one here where he talks about Dubois and what Hughes can do to kind of force Winnipeg's hand. He talks about an offer sheet where it's under a certain amount. I think it's around 4 point something million. Basically, a second round pick is the compensation, which most teams would immediately match that offer. But if the Jets match that offer, they cannot trade him for a full calendar year, which means he is on that contract until he's a UFA, when he can just walk away. So essentially what he's saying is he wants Hughes to use that as a threat, that offer sheet as a threat, so that Hughes could negotiate a fair deal for Dubois. And getting a fair deal for Dubois, depending on what his salary is and what you give away, that could work. But I think everything depends on what they pick up in the draft. Do they pick a right-hand defenseman in Reinbacher early in the draft? Do they get a centerman? Do they move up in the draft and somehow get Fantilli or Carlson, or who knows? So whatever happens early in the draft, I think will decide if they're going to go through with this approach for Dubois. So that's it. That's it for the show. I want to thank everybody for sending me your messages, for sending those emails in, sending suggestions. We love to hear them. We love to see them. We love interacting with you guys on social media. Unfortunately, Matt was ill. He couldn't come on the show. Treg is still quite busy. He's dealing with his posting coming up, so he's preparing for a move from Ottawa back to Halifax. So there's a lot going on there. I just want to say again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for making Habs Unfiltered such a popular show, beyond anything that we expected. So again, thank you very much. And thank you for listening. And if you're talking about it, so are we.